Good evening, and we're filming this evening in the Icon Gallery. We were working today on completing a virtual gallery of this Heiko Schlepper collection, which we'll have online before too long. It's actually a walk-through gallery online. And I think it's quite interesting. I'm hoping we'll have it up within 2 weeks now. There are two subjects I wanted to talk about this evening. Both have to do with children. And last broadcast we talked about a kind of spiritual abuse of children. And I think we'll touch on that again when we talk about the Jesus camps that take place in the United States. And also we haven't gone very far again on the theology made simple, simply because we haven't had that many questions asked since the first 3 broadcasts. And we may take that up a little later. What else is coming up? I'm going to do a little series called Dancing with Unicorns, how medieval mentality and the churches drive young people away from Christianity, and the fantasies and mythologies that permeate so much of Christianity, and that become ideologies that help to destroy the faith of a younger generation. But tonight I want to touch on a subject we seldom do touch on, the first one being abortion. And I'm not going to argue the abortion cause this evening, anti-abortion, pro-life, whatever. I simply want to point out a fact that I read that came from a major medical journal and has also appeared in one of the more popular scientific journals. Now, I saw it in Scientific American and followed it through to see what the research actually had uncovered. And I realized that in some places, late-term abortions up to 21 weeks are legal, in 1 or 2 places even up to 25 weeks. Now, what startled me about this article, which dealt with twins in the womb, that by the 12th to the 14th week, they're already developing an identifiable personhood and acknowledging each other's presence in the womb. They're already, by the 14th week, making premeditated and purposeful reaching out toward each other in the womb and touching each other, even stroking each other's head. It's easier to see this process with twins and 2 people in the womb because they're already cognizant of the other, the not I, and they're already reaching out to the other. So they're already becoming cognizant of a personal identity in relation to someone who's not me. Now, this surely tells us something about the problem with late-term abortions. The fact that it's easier to tell when they're twins in the womb because they have someone else to interact with doesn't negate the fact that all babies in the fetus are already developing a self-identity and already have a cognizance by the 14th week. And we can kind of see with modern scanning devices and techniques, we couldn't have verified this before because we didn't have the kind of scanning techniques and the research projects going that would have revealed this to us. Now, we've always held as Orthodox Christians that babies begin to learn in the womb. That when we talk about environmental effects, we must remember that the womb is an environment and that babies are learning in the womb. There was a mythology once upon a time that children were born as a blank slate, a tabula rasa, that they were just born sort of mindless with a functioning brain, and then they were programmed after their birth. Well, of course we know that's absolutely untrue. so many things are hardwired in the brain before people are born, sexual identification being one of them. You cannot make a girl into a boy after they're born, nor a boy into a girl after they're born, any more than you can change somebody who's born homosexual into not being that way. You have to understand, though, that when we talk about abortion, we're actually talking about killing a fetus that has a self-identity already, that has some concept of the I and the not I, and therefore a genuine self-identity. Now, if in the twins and the fetus, the babies can reach out toward each other because they know the other one is there, and it's quite clear that these are purposeful reaching out, touching the other twin on the head, even stroking the head. This makes it clear that a late-term abortion is absolutely and without doubt a murder of a sentient, self-identified being. And I think that's very significant and extremely important, and I think we should pick up on it and try to express it in some, not in this sort of hysterical way that drives somebody who's a little bit unbalanced to go out and murder somebody, like an abortion clinic doctor. That's a rather negative thing. But to acknowledge that this sentience and this self-identity make the fetus a real, vital, living person with a personhood. And we need to take that into account when we're discussing abortion and the problems with it. And people need to be aware of this. I don't think we're going to be able to change the law very easily, but at least it's a little more ammunition in it. The other thing I want to bring up about children is that I had mentioned on YouTube broadcast that mankind is essentially good, that evil is a virus that affects mankind, but people are really born essentially good. And some video response to that where someone was trying to demonstrate that people are totally depraved. Now, depraved is a very big word. It doesn't just mean bad or inclined toward sin or something like that. Depraved. Look it up in the dictionary and see exactly what it means. It's a very big word. Well, the pediatric studies that are really peer-reviewed, repeatable studies, done in a very scientific manner. The totally depraved'ites, usually Southern Baptist or some kind of Calvinists, argue that because a baby screams and cries when it's little for whatever it wants, this proves that the baby's born totally depraved, totally self-centered and egotistic. Actually, what it proves is that the baby doesn't have language yet and cannot express itself in a language or a sentence saying what it actually wants or needs. So all it can do is scream for attention in order to get taken care of, perhaps some pain that it has, some need to change its diaper, or hunger, or fear, or something like that. However, we've had now repeatedly discovered that by the age of 14 months, children are already expressing altruism of kind, and certainly empathy. Empathy is very clear by 14 months of age. And children, usually by 3 or 4 or 5, without any training whatsoever, will volunteer to help with chores and tasks because they have an empathy. And they're socializing, and they want to participate in the social activity around them. The children also are not born hating. We as Christians have to teach them how to hate. Other people teach them how to hate too, but we Christians are particularly good at it. We and Islam as well are particularly good at that. And we have to program them for some things like malice, prejudice, that sort of thing. And this is a kind of spiritual homicide in a way. It's certainly a kind of spiritual abuse to teach children to hate and to have prejudices. So I just wanted to mention these two things because I think it's extremely important for us to realize that by 14 weeks a fetus has a self-identity and is developing a personhood and has a certain amount of cognizance. So it's very important for us to work against late-term abortions especially. But armed with this information, you should research it yourselves, you should have the facts. You should make sure that you've done some research on this and have these facts to present and understand that this demonstrates what we've already said, that the fetus is a person, a living human being, and that particularly late-term abortion, I don't think anyone can deny that it's a form of murder, since we had the idea that this is a cognate sentient person with a self-identification. Perhaps we could argue that all abortion is a kind of murder, but we have something much more concrete in relation to late-term abortions. So I want to give that to people who want to use that information in the work that they're doing to curtail abortions. And the other one, to demonstrate what Orthodox Christianity has always argued, that mankind is essentially good, and that sin dwells parasitically in mankind, that evil is a parasite or virus, but it isn't a normal part of the human condition.